let's talk about Disney Star Wars. Now, Disney Star Wars is kind of a hot topic right now because of the recent stuff with Kelly Tran and what happened with her leaving Instagram. And there's rumors that she left because of people trolling her and saying all kinds of offensive, racist, sexist stuff. I don't know the validity of any of that. I see a lot of it on social media posts and a lot of stuff in the media, but if you look into it, it does not really seem like she says outright that she left because of sexist, racist Star Wars fans. So, I don't know. I think there might be a little bit of some projecting here by the media, or Disney is doing something on purpose so they can have a reason to just put the blame on any future Star Wars films not being successful in the box office onto the fans and just saying, well, people were just sexist and people were racist and people were this and that's why it wasn't as successful and blah, blah, blah. We need to force out hate and so on and so forth. Kicking the lion in the taint over and over again on purpose just to get some kind of reaction from people so they can have a fallback plan. So they can have the media cover for them. I don't know. Regardless, this is just one. This is just a minor thing, but it's an extension of a bigger problem with Disney Star Wars right now. Bob Iger has done a lot of good for Disney and things like that and so on and so forth. But Bob Iger is a businessman. He's a business first guy. He's not a film guy. He's not the guy who's going to look for story first or any of that or anything like that whatsoever. He's all about the bottom line, and that's one of the reasons why I was really worried about Disney buying Lucasfilm, because I knew what Bob Iger was about before and what Disney had become. Disney had become a giant conglomerate that was pretty much swallowing up everything it possibly could, every single asset it could get its hands on, so it could milk it dry. And I was worried that that would happen to Star Wars, and honestly, I think that's happened. I think that's already begun to happen, as you can see with all the different prequels and all this other stuff, and the overselling and the overproduction of the merchandise and all these other things. I was leery of oversaturation of Star Wars, and I think that's come to fruition. And in large parts because of Disney. That's their marketing plan. That's their game plan. And I know people point out MCU, Marvel. Well, you know what? The MCU and Marvel, they were successful before Disney came along, okay? Disney just bought them. Disney saw something that was already successful and then just had the money, bought Marvel, and took the MCU and just left Kevin Feige to do whatever the hell he wanted. And there was an instance where he was unhappy with something and Disney came in and removed the problem and fixed it. But they pretty much just lay back. But it seems like with Lucasfilm and with their relationship with Lucasfilm and Star Wars, it's the complete opposite. That's why I was worried about Disney in a lot of different ways with Lucasfilm. But also with Lucasfilm, it's baffling to me how Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy are taking the exact same approach that Warner Brothers and DC did with their DC Cinematic Universe. Instead of taking an approach from the MCU, which is Disney's and Marvel's cash cow, which by having a set structure for your films, by having things planned in advance, they just decided to do this fly by the seat of their pants thing and just have random directors just do experimentation with the franchise. They didn't have a plan in place. They had J.J. Abrams do the new film, and then he threw out all these questions that weren't answered, and you were assuming that they were going to be answered in the second film, but that never happened because they never had a plan in the first place. They admitted that on camera. They did not have a plan. They had no plan. They just let Rian Johnson dick around with the franchise. They let him deconstruct Star Wars in the second film in their new tentpole trilogy, and completely destroyed anything that was built up in The Force Awakens, which makes the first film fairly pointless. The second film, after it's over, The Last Jedi, has really put the entire franchise in limbo right now. What's going to happen? I don't know. They even brought back J.J. Abrams because they're like, J.J., can you please come on and try to fix it? And J.J. has supported Rian Johnson because why wouldn't he? He still wants a job. But the thing is, it's just one of those, they didn't have a plan. They had no strong foundation. They had a weak foundation or no foundation to begin with and just started building. And now things are falling apart and they don't understand and then want to project and then want to throw blame to everyone else but themselves. So they want to go on and say, well, you know, it's because people were sexist. These sexist Star Wars fans, these racist Star Wars fans, these crybabies, these man babies, and they are refusing to acknowledge that they're a part of the problem. This is why Warner Brothers and DC are struggling, is because they're just acting like everything was fine. Everything's hunky-dory. We started a franchise. We started our own cinematic universe on a whim because Marvel was so successful. So instead of Man of Steel 2, instead of all these other superhero films, we're just going to spin off into a new franchise with Batman vs. Superman. There's no fucking thought process involved. It was just Man of Steel. Okay, I guess we can use that as the launching point. But it was not the intended plan from the start. And say what you want about the prequels, about the Star Wars prequels, but there was at least cohesion. There was at least continuity. George Lucas was involved with all three of them. He had the same vision for all of them. There really was not a lot of differences in terms of the story and in terms of how things connected and how things worked. With these new Star Wars films, it's just a fucking randomness. It's a random smorgasbord, and that doesn't work when you're trying to create a new franchise. Yeah, it's an established IP, but you're still trying to create a new franchise because it's the Disney Lucasfilm Star Wars. It's not the same Star Wars as before. So you need to understand that, okay, you need to create some semblance of a structure. You need to have continuity. You need to have cohesion. If you don't have any of that, everything just falls apart because there's nothing connecting it together. And that's the big problem we have with Disney Star Wars films. You got The Force Awakens, which is a film that was just playing it as safe as it possibly could to get the goodwill back from the Star Wars fans, to give them some callbacks, to pat them on the back, to give them a nostalgia rush, and then maybe from that point forward do something a little bit different or go in a different direction or expand upon the stories and the questions that were brought up in The Force Awakens. But then The Last Jedi comes along and none of that ever happens. Snoke dies. You don't know who Rey's parents are. They're just a bunch of nobodies. Oh, the Knights of Ren, fuck those, fuck them. It might as well be the Knights of Ren and Stimpy. Who gives a shit? And it's just one of those things. Why? Why the fuck would you do that? Why would you purposely let somebody take over the production of your second film of your tentpole trilogy, destroy your franchise? That's essentially what Rian Johnson did. He deliberately destroyed the franchise. He deconstructed it, and Disney and Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy just stood by idly and were just like, yeah, all right, fine. That's a good way to do things. It's because they don't have a fucking clue how to do this. They don't. You would think Kathleen Kennedy would know with all her years working with Amblin and Steven Spielberg, but apparently not. Apparently she has no clue, or the people under her have no clue, or Disney doesn't have a clue, or it's a combination of people who don't have a clue. But regardless, there's a bunch of people who are clueless up at Lucasfilm and Disney when it comes to Star Wars, because they don't have any set plan. They have no floor plan. They're just doing shit at random. And that's not a recipe for success, regardless of what the box office might say. And you're seeing that with Solo. And with the other prequels too, I could care less. I don't care about Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I didn't care about it when it came out. I still don't care about it. The best thing about it was a scene with Vader kicking ass. And that was like 30 seconds to a minute long. Everything else is lame. Don't care about the characters. That's another problem with these Disney movies. It's not the race or the gender or the ethnicity that is the reason why people, well, at least most people, the majority of people who have an issue with these characters. It's not any of those things, which is why people are upset. People are upset because these characters are poorly written. They're poorly developed. They have no charisma. They have no personality. They're just cookie cutter characters. There's nothing to them. I mean, it seems like every single female lead in this Disney Star Wars universe is just a carbon copy of Rey. It's the same fucking character. It's a generic white girl with a British accent. It's the same fucking thing every single time. There's no difference. I think there might have been a difference in Solo, but I haven't seen it. But from what I've seen from it looks like the same fucking character. They're just Xeroxing generic female white leads. And then they're throwing in generic characters, generic character traits, and slapping different colors of paint on them. So you have Finn, who's just basically a stock character. He's just generic. You can put whatever you want onto him. And then you have Poe, who's basically just generic Han Solo. Excuse me, just talking about it just makes me irritated, apparently. Irritates my sinuses, gets me all stuffed up or something. I guess I'm allergic to Disney's bullshit right now with Star Wars. But anyway, yeah, they're just generic characters, as generic as humanly possible. You can say what you want to say about Luke, about some of these other characters, but at least they evolved as the franchise went on. There's no evolution with any of these characters right now. They stayed the same. Rey stayed the same. The only evolution that's going on is maybe with Kylo Ren, but there wasn't a lot of evolution with this character in Last Jedi. He was still an angry, whiny, emo boy. Really, there really wasn't much of a difference there. So, that's a huge problem. People don't like these characters because they suck. It's not because they're black or because they're female or because they're Italian or because they're Asian. These characters suck. Kelly Tran, I have nothing against that actress personally, but her character of Rose Tico sucks. It's terrible. It's an awful character. She's a fanboy. She's a fangirl. She's just a fangirl of Star Wars in a Star Wars movie. And that's really all she is. She's just there to tag along, hang on for the ride, be a half-assed love interest for for Finn, and say cringe lines like "Love will save us all." There's nothing to that character, and she was forced down people's throats. So that's another reason why people don't like the character, is because she was nowhere to be found in the previous film, but all of a sudden, here she is. I mean, the movie opens up with her sister dying, and I don't even know who the hell her sister's name. I didn't even know what her sister's name was. There's this big action sequence with this Asian gal who was front and center and then dies, and then you find out later, oh, it was Rose's sister. I'm like, wow, really? You're going to start out your big opening sequence for your second film in your tentpole trilogy with a character nobody even knows who the fuck it is? You hire a director who purposely is sabotaging the Star Wars mythos because it's dark and it's daring. You do that kind of shit when you're way down the line. You don't do that kind of experimental shit when you are in the second film in your tentpole trilogy. You don't do that. Empire Strikes Back was dark and it took different directions, but it had the right approach. It had the right balance. The Last Jedi doesn't have the right balance. And The Empire Strikes Back did not absolutely disrespect iconic, legendary characters in the franchise, like The Last Jedi did with Luke Skywalker, who's turned into an old hermit, who's an asshole, who isn't likable, and then he dies in the lamest way possible. There's no awesome death for him. There's no it's not a fitting death for the franchise's central character. Really, for many years, Luke was the franchise's central character. Nope. He dies alone on a cliffside somewhere and fades away into fucking dust. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's what the Disney Star Wars franchise can do. It can fade away into fucking dust. Because I don't really give a shit about Disney Star Wars. I'm talking about this. I'm talking about it here to kind of give my final words on some things and vent. That's really why I'm doing this video. But after The Last Jedi, that was the last straw. I'm done. I am fucking done with Disney and their Star Wars franchise. The Last Jedi just absolutely killed it for me. And I know I'm not alone. It killed my enthusiasm. It killed my trust. I don't trust Kathleen Kennedy. I don't trust Lucasfilm. I don't trust Disney with this franchise. Why should I? They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't. They have no plan in place. They have this whole subplot, this whole big plot around let the past die in The Last Jedi. And then 5 months later they release Solo and they're like, hey, remember the past? Hey, come on. Yeah, I know we said let the past die in the last movie, but we're just kidding. Like, we're just kind of messing around, we're just kind of experimenting. We're just kind of, trying out our own thing. Like, no, seriously, we love the past. You love the past, don't you? Come back to the theater and watch Solo and watch the past. Fuck that. No. You already told us to fuck off. Why the hell would any of us go back and go, willingly for another round of ass fucking? No, thank you. I don't want another round of ass fucking from you. Kathleen Kennedy, Lucasfilm, Disney. I'm done. My ass is already raw. I don't need a Star Destroyer up it anymore, okay? They should maybe nickname Kathleen Kennedy the Star Destroyer, because that's really what she is. She's the Star Wars Destroyer. She's the equivalent of a Star Destroyer. So I don't get their thought process. Like, it's like they weren't expecting Solo to underperform. They weren't expecting the fan base that was divided after The Last Jedi, the fan base that you derided, the fan base that you just ignored, the fan base that you just started talking shit to and being all inflammatory about. You didn't expect them to fight back by not paying money to see your movie? I mean, that's marketing 101, isn't it? Aren't you the ones that should know how to do marketing and know how to help with your bottom line and all that shit? Apparently not. Anybody could see this coming a mile away if they paid attention. So, yeah, Solo tanked. Not surprised. They had two really talented directors in Phil Lord and Chris Miller. They let them shoot 70% of the movie, but then they're like, we don't like it all of a sudden, and canned them. I'm wondering what that is. I keep hearing they took too long to shoot scenes. I don't know about that. They did too much jokey stuff. I can believe that. Maybe they were trying to do something off the wall and out there, a little bit edgy, and Kathleen Kennedy and Disney were like, no, we can't have that with our tentpole franchise for kids. So cut that out or we'll cut you. And apparently, they cut him. They cut him and replaced them with a yes man. As much as I like Ron Howard and a lot of his films, when is the last good movie he's done? Apollo 13? So, and he pretty much is just a yes man for Disney. So, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay, yes, Miss Kennedy. I'll do whatever you please. There's a steady paycheck in it. I'll do whatever you want. But anyway, and also with Solo, who wanted to see that movie? I mean, a Han Solo prequel. I don't give a shit about a Han Solo prequel. I don't care. If I want to see that story, I'll read the books or the comics. Okay, I don't want to see a movie with Han Solo starring somebody who isn't Harrison Ford. They didn't have any faith in the marketing either. Like, they had trailers where they barely showed any of Alden Ehrenreich, their main star. They barely showed him because even they knew he sucked. He sucked so bad that they had to hire a acting coach in the middle of filming. I mean, this is ridiculous. This is what happens if you don't have any plans set in place. You're just doing random shit. You're like, oh, and apparently they're trying to do a Star Wars cinematic universe. It doesn't seem like you're putting that much of an effort into it. If you're going to do that, then do it. You should have done that from the beginning and had all these templates in place. But nope. They keep announcing all these different Star Wars movies and all this other stuff, and they're all just different offshoots and different things that don't even connect to one another. I don't care about the Boba Fett prequel, because Boba Fett is a cool looking character, and he's cool in the comics and in the books, but he's a fucking dumbass and a terrible character in the movies. I'm sorry. Maybe he's not a dumbass, but she sure looks stupid. I mean, he dies like a fucking bitch in Return of the Jedi. So, I don't care about the Boba Fett movie. I don't care about Obi-Wan. I don't give a shit. I don't care about episode... What is it, 9? I think it's episode 10. I don't really care. Or 9. I think it's episode 9. I don't really give a shit about the next film in the trilogy. Why should I care? J.J. Abrams did a mediocre job with the first film, had all these questions that never got answered, and now he's supposed to sew everything up? I'm supposed to trust J.J. Abrams on doing that? I don't think I've seen him do that successfully once. With Star Trek, he wasn't even able to do that. He got pushed out of the director's chair for the third film. So if that isn't bad enough, okay, with the whole way that all these films have been handled, the structure, the setup, I mean, you have the merchandising, which is absolutely failing. It's a Disney and Lucasfilm with their Star Wars brand. It might as well be flatlining right now. That's the epitome of oversaturation. When The Force Awakens came out, they had all these toys, all this other stuff, t-shirts, water bottles, slippers, everything under the sun. And even when The Last Jedi came out, you had advertisements on bags of fucking salad. Yeah, like I'm gonna go get a bag of salad from Dole, and I need to see Rey's face staring at me. Why do we? What? An advertising blitz that was just unheard of. I mean, even with Solo, it's a joke. They put a Solo advertising on red Solo cups. It looks like some bad Photoshop joke, but it's actually real. And then their toy sales, which was a huge, big thing for Star Wars and for Lucasfilm, and Disney was probably expecting they were going to make buttloads of money. They have been hemorrhaging money in that department. So much, I think Kenner lost the rights and somebody else bought them or something, if I remember correctly. Regardless, they've been hemorrhaging money. The only time any of them sold was when they were on clearance. And they're making toys, even some of them that were on clearance never sold. Because we don't want Rose Tico toys. People don't want the fucking SJW bot from Solo. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants Admiral Holdo. Hell no. Nobody wants any of that shit. So, that's another problem. They're losing money. Disney's Lucasfilm have probably lost millions on merchandising alone. I guarantee it. They have lost millions of dollars on merchandising for Solo, Last Jedi, and possibly even The Force Awakens. Definitely Rogue One. I don't know. Remember anybody buying any Rogue One toys or even really anything like that. And a lot of kids today, they don't play with action figures. They don't do a lot of stuff like that anyway. So why would you put all that money into it? You're going to funnel money into that so you can get the diehard Star Wars fans that you are essentially telling them to fuck off with the way you're treating established characters? Or in the media when you call them a bunch of man babies? Or when you say that, oh, well, we didn't make Star Wars is not just for white males. I mean, you're expecting those people to pay money to buy your products? Are you dense? So there's that, and then you have the recent outpouring of the just there's all this stuff in the media pouring out about how toxic the Star Wars fan base is. Just because there's a small minority of assholes and fuckfaces and Star Wars fans who are saying racist, sexist, and just all kinds of offensive things and going about and showing their anger and their ire towards the franchise and where it's heading in the worst possible way, that does not mean that every single Star Wars fan is in the same boat. I cannot believe I'm making this argument again. I can't believe I'm saying the same shit. Because, wow, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of the PR nightmare that happened in 2016 with Paul Feig's Ghostbusters. Why the fuck is this happening again 2 years later? Why? You would think that Disney and Lucasfilm, of all people, who are all about marketing, all about PR, all about this other stuff, all about the bottom line, would have seen that failure and been like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't make the same mistake. Nope. It blows my mind. It's the same thing, and it has the potential to be even worse, because Star Wars, Ghostbusters is a pretty well-known franchise, but Star Wars is an even bigger franchise. And this is not going to end well if they keep this up. If they try to keep doing this virtue signaling shit. They keep trying to do this, blame the lack of box office on people are just tired of Star Wars. No, fans aren't necessarily tired of Star Wars. They're tired of shitty Star Wars movies. They're tired of shitty characters. They're tired of you, Kathleen Kennedy and company, opening your mouths and disrespecting and treating other fans like shit. They're tired of that. Like to have some respect. Like to get some respect reciprocated. You know? Something like that. If you want our money, you have to respect us. You can't just be like, well, fuck those people. They're just a bunch of mindless sheep who are just going to give us every single cent. Oh, it has Star Wars on it. Well, they're going to see it anyway. We don't need to respect them. We don't need to show respect to them. We don't need to listen to them. If they say things about the films that they don't like, they offer some constructive criticism, we don't need to listen to it. In fact, we can just fire back at it. We can fire our lasers at it, and we can just look at it and scoff. We can deride it. We can do all this. It's like, what are you doing? You're basically turning the Death Star laser on yourself. That's what you're doing. You have this giant franchise at your fingertips, and you're turning the Death Star laser around and deciding to blow yourself to smithereens instead of doing what's the right thing, which is listening to your fan base and trying to do things differently. Set up a fucking structure. It's not too much to ask. Follow the MCU. Don't follow the DCU. I got 4 steps for you, Lucasfilm and Disney, on how you can fix your flagging franchise right now and how you can distance yourself from the media and all these other things and all these other claims that that your fan base is toxic. Okay? Here are my 4 steps. Okay, the first step is to stop making inflammatory comments. That means you, Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy, the Star Wars writer, all of that. Stop doing it. All it does is rile up the crazies in the Star Wars fan base. It adds more fuel to the fire, gets them all upset and pissed. It doesn't help anything. So stop it. Stop being so defensive. Just really stop pointing it out. That's the main thing. Stop doing that. If you keep firing back, they're going to keep firing back at you, and you're going to start getting obliterated. You're going to start getting destroyed because they see, oh, you're firing back at us. We're going to fire back at you 10,000 fold and then some. These people are not all there. Like, you can't really reason with them. So don't bother. Second, the directors, writers, and people at Lucasfilm, like I said, they need to ignore the psychotic rantings and ravings of a few Star Wars fans. Stop giving them attention. That's what they want. That's why they're doing this. They want your attention. They want to hear from you. And they want to see you be upset and get all pissy and go onto Twitter and start calling them out. They want to see that. Stop doing it. Like, I can't it's such a simple thing. Stop giving them attention. Third, gag the media. If you can, get them to stop constantly associating the Star Wars fan base. I'm so worked up I can't even speak. Get them to stop associating the Star Wars fan base with being toxic, racist, sexist, or whatever. No matter how offensive some of these statements might be, stop allowing yourself or the media to bring light to them. Ignore it. I've been on YouTube for over 10 years. I've been called every single name under the sun. I've had death threats. I've had videos made about me. I've had all kinds of shit. The worst thing, the worst thing that anybody could do is to react to any of that, to give them some ammo. Don't do it. Ignore it. I mean, it might be offensive. It might be really bad. But you have to let them starve. That's how you truly get rid of this type of toxic behavior, these toxic fans. You let them burn in their own toxic waste. You let them starve to death. You keep giving them attention and references and keep giving them credit constantly, over and over and over and over again. You have a director who is essentially who keeps poking them constantly. Nothing's ever going to change. And fourth, just make better movies. I know what's a better film is subjective, but really, I don't think it's going to work out with Star Wars if you're going to keep doing this random grab bag franchise deal. I don't think that's going to work. The whole, like, I'm going to cover my eyes and just throw some darts at a board and whatever dart it lands on, we'll do that movie. Or we'll take that approach for the film. That's not going to work. And if people are bothering you online, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy, Ryan Johnson, whatever, even Kelly Tran, be bigger than them. Don't respond. And just block them. That's what the block button is for, okay? Block them. Block them out of your life, off the internet, and move on. Don't give them the time of day. You leave, you just gave them a win. They can mark off Kelly Tran leaving, if that's the reason why she left, as a win. And it doesn't mean I condone anything that any of these scumbags are saying. I don't. I'm just saying, from experience, the only way to really handle any of this is to block it, ignore it, don't give them attention, and let those fuckers starve to death. But Disney and Lucasfilm and Star Wars, they also have to take some share of the blame. Because I don't remember this fan base ever being associated with being this toxic or sexist or racist or whatever until Kathleen Kennedy, Ryan Johnson, and all these other people involved with the Star Wars franchise under Disney started talking about it, started accusing people, started saying this and whatever, started pointing a giant spotlight at the small minority of people that are being that way. Let's face it, folks, fan bases are crazy. They have some really crazy people in them. That's why they're called fan bases. They're called fans. It's just a part of how things are in a fan base. Even when you had a series of films that was doing really well, like the Dark Knight trilogy, you still had crazy fans that if you dared to besmirch the name of Christopher Nolan and said that you liked the Batman films directed by Tim Burton better, there were crowds of people who would be like, heretic, burn him at the stake. Even when things were going well. But when things are not going well, when a franchise is is starting to flag a little bit, like Ghostbusters or with Star Wars right now, that breeds even more toxicity. That breeds even more angry hordes of fans. And if you keep poking them, you keep smacking them around, you keep kicking the hornet's nest, you're going to get stung. And why keep getting stung? Disney, Lucasfilm, Star Wars, you're all about the bottom line, right? You're all about making money. You're not going to make money if you keep this up. Stop kicking the hornet's nest. Show some respect to your fans. Change things up, because this setup you have is a fail in the making, and a major one. And Solo was already an example of that. If you do those things, things will get better. Things will be fine, and you can ensure the longevity of this franchise. But if you don't do anything, you try to point fingers and push the blame off of anybody but yourself, try to act like you didn't do anything to cause this, that's just going to get worse. And your box office receipts are going to get worse, and the franchise is going to get run into the ground, and it's going to be like all these other franchises. RoboCop. It's a joke. Run into the ground. Yeah, there's still people who really like RoboCop and so on and so forth, but as a franchise, it's a fucking joke. The Terminator. Joke. Terminate the franchise. Why do we have another film coming out? That's just going to add more misery to that already miserable franchise. That should have stopped after T2. Star Wars will end up being in the same boat. Look at Star Trek right now. For the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies, and then the Star Trek Discovery show, which is a fucking disaster. Now Star Trek is kind of up in the air, and they're kind of like, it's kind of a joke of a franchise right now. Star Wars is next. If things aren't done to change, to fix things, stop acting like everything's okay. It isn't. It isn't okay. If it was, Solo would have done better. But anyway, I don't know what else to say. I've said my piece. I'm out of breath. I hope you enjoyed it. This isn't really a mini rant because it's long. It's a long video, but this, just one of there are a lot of things I had on my chest. So I'm just gonna call it, I guess, a rant or something. I don't know. Either way, I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave your thoughts on what I had to say in the comments down below, or give your own different thoughts or whatever on the whole Disney, Star Wars, Lucasfilm situation. And if you are one of those people who really like the films and you love the direction they're taking and you think it's the right way to go about things, that's cool, that's fine. I respectfully disagree. I don't think this is gonna work. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't have any issue with anybody who likes any of the Disney Star Wars movies. I think that's great, because that means that this world is still a very interesting place to be and to be a part of. And I want Star Wars to not be associated with toxicity. I want Star Wars to be a franchise that will stand the test of time and will last. I don't want it to be a cow that's milked dry. I don't want this franchise to just die someday. And it could easily die faster than Disney might even possibly imagine if they continue to just milk it and milk it and milk it and milk it. I'm afraid it's just going to croak. I don't think it's built to do that. Star Wars films were built on a lot of anticipation back in the day, and there isn't really a lot of that now. And there wasn't really a lot of oversaturation of Star Wars because it was a fairly new thing in when it came out. But now I'm afraid we're getting to that point, and if you're not going to have well-written stories with cohesive narratives and charismatic and memorable characters, then I don't really know, and I don't really see a reason why there should be any more Star Wars movies. So it's just one of those things. I want to see someone take more care of the franchise, and someone like Kevin Feige, who's doing such a wonderful job with Marvel. I want to see someone like that at the head of Lucasfilm. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is that person, and I hope Disney does something, because they remain stagnant about Star Wars. It's I just don't see a very positive outcome for this franchise, and I could totally see even more fans just getting pissed off and just stop supporting the franchise. So that's just my thoughts, and thank you for watching. And as always, I will see you later. See ya.